Who would have thought that behind their stage performances that are always charismatic, energetic, and almost perfect, our seven beloved boys actually have their own fears that are very human? Yes, even though they are global megastars who have conquered the biggest stadiums around the world, BTS are still ordinary guys with unique phobias that sometimes make us smile fondly. Starting from everyday electronic items to unseen things, let's unpack the seven biggest fears admitted directly by the BTS members in their various recent interviews. Number 7. RM and his own fear of elephants. RM's characteristics as a group leader are very strong, smart, and full of authority. However, who would have thought that the man whose real name is Kim Nam-joon, who once gave a speech at the United Nations headquarters, has his own fear of large-bodied animals, namely elephants? Although not deeply highlighted in every interview, several sources and eagle-eyed fans have found that RM is uncomfortable when faced with the concept or form of an elephant. As a fun fact to add to your knowledge, a specific fear of animals is known in medical terms as zoophobia, and when focused on giant trunked animals like elephants, this becomes very specific. Elephants are the largest land mammals on Earth, which can weigh up to 6,000 kilograms and reach a height of 4 meters. These animals have extraordinary physical strength and movements that are sometimes difficult for ordinary humans to predict. From a basic psychological perspective, feeling intimidated by creatures whose physical size is many times that of the human body is a natural response to survive. Our brains are programmed to be alert to something that has the potential for physical strength far above us. Interestingly, RM, who has very high intellectual intelligence and sharp analytical skills, still cannot resist this biological response and instinct of vigilance. This proves that fear is a neutral reaction that is naturally possessed by anyone, regardless of their level of intelligence or social status. Fans consider the contrast between RM's tough image as a rapper and his discomfort with these large animals as a very human and adorable side. Even though he is very reliable at stringing word after word for complex song lyrics, facing an elephant apparently requires a different kind of courage for him. Number 6. Jin and his extra reaction to insects. As the oldest member, Jin is often relied on to break the ice, but he is also famous as someone who is easily startled, especially if an insect suddenly appears near him. Jin's dislike for insects crawling or flying towards him is often clearly recorded in various behind-the-scenes content. A fun fact for you, an excessive fear of insects is called entomophobia. Insects have a very different anatomy from humans, such as a large number of legs, fast-moving antennas, and wings that produce a buzzing sound. Their movements, which are very fast, random, and unpredictable by the human eye, make our central nervous system often respond with danger signals. When an insect suddenly flies close, the eyes will send this visual information to the brain in a matter of milliseconds, and the body immediately reacts with dodging movements or screaming as an initial defense mechanism. Jin never hides his shocked reaction. His body will immediately respond with a quick backward movement and a very expressive facial expression. This spontaneous reaction is not made up at all and often becomes the most entertaining moment for the staff and fans. In many outdoor situations during the filming process, the presence of insects is indeed unavoidable, considering that the insect population on Earth is massive. Generally, biologists estimate there are about 10 quintillion insects living on Earth at any given time. So it makes a lot of sense that wherever Jin is, his chances of encountering these small winged animals are always there. Jin's honesty in expressing his insecurities towards insects shows his high level of self-confidence, where he does not feel the need to maintain a cool image all the time and lets his vulnerable side be seen by the millions of people watching him. Number 5. V and discomfort with the supernatural. Taehyung, or V,
always amazes the audience with his sharp gaze and deep vocals, but he will immediately turn into a very cautious person when faced with supernatural things or ghosts. V's fear of ghosts is clearly recorded when he plays horror-themed virtual reality games or when the staff intentionally designs scary surprises. As an additional fun info, the fear of ghosts or the supernatural is scientifically known as phasmophobia. This kind of fear is very closely related to how the human mind processes uncertainty and the unseen. Naturally, humans feel safer when they have full control over their surroundings and can see threats physically. When the threat is a supernatural entity that has no definite physical form and is not bound by logical laws of physics, the brain will have trouble finding a logical way out. This is what triggers a significant spike in anxiety. V often shows physical reactions of freezing, breaking out in cold sweat, or begging to immediately end the horror simulation he is facing. Even though he is wearing advanced equipment like virtual reality glasses whose screens only display computer-generated digital images, the human brain is often fooled by such realistic visual illusions and spatial sounds. The simulation environment successfully triggers the amygdala part of V's brain to produce stress hormones because he feels the threat is truly in the same room with him. Interestingly, V's fear actually makes many fans feel very connected to him because being afraid of the supernatural or the dark is one of the most universal phobias experienced by humans in various parts of the world. V teaches us that being honest when feeling afraid is a very natural thing and shows the authentic side of himself that he always protects.
Number 4. Suga and the shock of loud firework noises. Who does not know the calm and thoughtful charm of a Min Yoongi or Suga? This man, who often looks very focused, turns out to have a very real weakness for very loud and sudden noises, especially the sound of firework explosions on the concert stage. This phenomenon of fear of loud noises is medically often associated with the term phonophobia, or in the specific case of fireworks, it can refer to pyrotechnophobia. This fear is very reasonable considering how the anatomy and biology of the human brain process sounds that appear without warning. As fun info to add to your knowledge, let's discuss a little about the physics of sound and how it affects a musician's body on stage. The sound of firework explosions in a giant stadium-scale concert can easily reach noise levels of 140 to 150 decibels. This number is far above the safe limit of human hearing, which is generally in the range of 85 decibels for long-term exposure. When pyrotechnic effects or confetti cannons are fired suddenly, a chemical reaction occurs in the form of rapid combustion that produces large amounts of gas and pressure. This pressure then pushes the surrounding air very strongly, creating a shock wave or longitudinal sound wave that propagates through the air at a speed of about 343 meters per second. This high-energy sound wave then enters the human ear canal and hits the tympanic membrane, which we usually call the eardrum. The impact of this wave vibrates the three smallest auditory bones in the human body, namely the hammer, anvil, and stirrup bones, which then forward this physical vibration into the cochlea. The cochlea is a snail-shaped structure in the inner ear filled with special fluid and thousands of microscopic hair cells. These hair cells are tasked with translating physical vibrations from the fluid into electrical signals, which are then sent directly to the brain via the auditory nerve. This process, involving physics, biology, and neurology, occurs in just a matter of milliseconds. Because the concert firework sounds explode suddenly without giving the brain time to prepare, the part of the brain called the amygdala will respond to the impulse as a direct threat. The amygdala immediately activates the sympathetic nervous system, triggering the release of the hormones adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream. This is what causes the innate startle reflex, which is often referred to as the startle response. This reflex is completely beyond our conscious control, and this is the exact reason why Suga's body is often seen flinching, closing his eyes tightly, or even ducking slightly when there is a stage explosion near him. His body's reaction is purely a basic human protective mechanism that functions optimally. On the other hand, we must remember Suga's background as a genius music producer. Suga spends thousands of hours of his life inside a soundproof recording studio.
The studio environment is a highly controlled acoustic environment. The walls are lined with dampening foam to prevent echoes, and Suga has absolute control over every frequency of sound that comes out of the loudspeakers through his digital audio workstation software. He can adjust the bass volume, cut annoying high frequencies, and predict exactly when an instrument will sound in the song. This full control provides a sense of audio security and comfort. However, when he steps out of the studio and onto a giant-scale concert stage, control over that audio environment shifts into the hands of the stage production team. The drastic difference between a completely predictable environment and a stage environment full of visual surprise elements and high-intensity audio is what creates its own sensory pressure for him. To minimize the risk of hearing damage in these extreme environments, the BTS members always use sound monitoring devices or in-ear monitors that are custom-molded to fit the shape of their respective ear canals. This device uses a solid acrylic material that functions as a passive earplug, effectively blocking most outside noise. In addition, this device sends a mix of music and vocal audio directly to their eardrums at a safe and controlled volume level. Even though this protection system is highly advanced, the low-frequency shock waves from high-level firework explosions have enough energy to propagate not only through the air but also through solid objects like the stage floor. These floor vibrations can travel through the feet and body, providing a physical pounding sensation that remains startling even though the ears are well protected. Understanding the entire physical and biological processes behind these stage sounds makes us appreciate Suga's work ethic even more. Many recordings from fans show how Suga can very quickly regulate his breathing and resume his fast-paced rap parts with perfect articulation just seconds after he experiences a strong startle reflex. His body's reaction is purely a basic human protective mechanism that functions optimally. On the other hand, we must remember Suga's background as a genius music producer. Suga spends thousands of hours of his life inside a soundproof recording studio. The studio environment is a highly controlled acoustic environment. The walls are lined with dampening foam to prevent echoes, and Suga has absolute control over every frequency of sound that comes out of the loudspeakers through his digital audio workstation software. He can adjust the bass volume, cut annoying high frequencies, and predict exactly when an instrument will sound in the song. This full control provides a sense of audio security and comfort. However, when he steps out of the studio and onto a giant-scale concert stage, control over that audio environment shifts into the hands of the stage production team. The drastic difference between a completely predictable environment and a stage environment full of visual surprise elements and high-intensity audio is what creates its own sensory pressure for him. To minimize the risk of hearing damage in these extreme environments, the BTS members always use sound monitoring devices or in-ear monitors that are custom-molded to fit the shape of their respective ear canals. This device uses a solid acrylic material that functions as a passive earplug, effectively blocking most outside noise. In addition, this device sends a mix of music and vocal audio directly to their eardrums at a safe and controlled volume level. Even though this protection system is highly advanced, the low-frequency shock waves from high-level firework explosions have enough energy to propagate not only through the air but also through solid objects like the stage floor. These floor vibrations can travel through the feet and body, providing a physical pounding sensation that remains startling even though the ears are well protected. Understanding the entire physical and biological processes behind these stage sounds makes us appreciate Suga's work ethic even more. Many recordings from fans show how Suga can very quickly regulate his breathing and resume his fast-paced rap parts with perfect articulation just seconds after he experiences a strong startle reflex. His body's reaction is purely a basic human protective mechanism that functions optimally.
Number 3. Jimin, and childhood phobia of butterflies and social media pressure. Jimin is known to have very graceful dance movements and high-level precision on stage, but behind his physical perfection, he harbors two very unique and cross-era fears, namely a childhood fear of butterflies and a modern fear of the buttons on the social media application Instagram. Let's discuss in depth the interesting phenomenon of these two types of fears without using any metaphors at all. First of all, the excessive fear of butterflies is medically known as lepidopterophobia. Even though butterflies are generally considered beautiful, harmless insects that do not have stingers, the fear of these animals is very real and has a strong visual and psychological basis. Biologically, butterflies have a very random, erratic flight pattern, and they often make sudden movements, changing direction in the air due to wind influence and their wing design. The human eye and visual processing system naturally tend to respond to random movements approaching the face as a potential danger, which makes butterflies often trigger an avoidance reflex. In addition, if viewed from a very close distance, the anatomy of a butterfly has an insect body shape with jointed legs, antennas, and wings covered by thousands of microscopic scales that can detach. For Jimin, this fear is rooted in a very specific childhood experience. On various occasions, he has shared that when he was very little, someone playfully put a live butterfly into his pants. The physical sensation of the flapping wings and the movement of the trapped insect in that confined space created a strong sensory trauma on his childhood brain. Children's brains have a very high ability to associate intense negative emotions with the object that caused them, a process known as classical conditioning in psychology. Even though Jimin has grown up and rationally knows that butterflies cannot hurt him, the automatic response of his nervous system upon seeing the animal is still connected to that unpleasant physical memory from childhood. Besides that childhood phobia, Jimin recently openly shared another fear that is very relevant to the lives of modern humans today, which is the fear of using the Instagram application when the BTS members simultaneously created personal accounts. Jimin admitted in a live broadcast that he felt very nervous and afraid to upload something or press certain buttons for fear of making a mistake. This fear of technology or digital platforms often falls into the spectrum of social media anxiety. As a fun fact, the user interface on modern smartphones operates using capacitive touchscreens, where the screen detects very small changes in electrical current when in contact with a human finger. These sensors are designed to be highly sensitive, meaning a light touch is enough to execute a command. In applications like Instagram, the distance between the buttons to simply like a post, upload a story, or accidentally start a live broadcast is very close. For new users, this complex button layout can be very confusing. Furthermore, Jimin is not just an ordinary user. He is a public figure with tens of millions of followers monitoring every digital activity in real time. Instagram's global server system allows a photo or video to be seen by millions of people worldwide within seconds after the upload button is pressed. This fact about permanent digital footprints provides enormous psychological pressure. If Jimin accidentally presses the wrong button and posts content that is not ready or inappropriate, the platform's algorithm will quickly spread it, and millions of fans might save screenshots before the content can be deleted. This burden of perfection and mass public scrutiny creates an exceptionally high level of caution. The contrast between his ability to master very complex dance choreography and his confusion facing a smartphone application interface is highly interesting. When Jimin dances, his body moves based on kinesthetic intelligence and muscle memory that has been consistently trained for tens of thousands of hours. On stage, he has full control over every angle of his body. However, in the digital world, application rules and interfaces are often updated without notice, giving a feeling of loss of control. This interaction shows that physical intelligence and technological comfort are two entirely different areas of proficiency. In the end, the army responded to Jimin's honest confession by giving massive support. Many fans routinely provided simple guides on other platforms to help him understand the functions of various buttons on Instagram. This support created a safe environment for Jimin to learn to operate social media at his own pace. Jimin's courage to share his childhood fear of butterflies, as well as his nervousness towards social media, proves that he is not afraid to show his vulnerable side, which in turn makes the bond between him and his fans even stronger and more realistic.
Number 2. J-Hope and his struggle against heights. J-Hope, or Jung Hosak, is often dubbed as the sunshine of the BTS group because of his never-ending positive energy. But he's also the member who is most often seen trembling with fear when faced with situations involving high places. This extreme fear of heights is scientifically known as acrophobia, and it has become J-Hope's main weakness, which contrasts sharply with his confidence when dancing street style. To understand why J-Hope is so tormented by high places, let's examine the biology behind human balance as an educational fun fact. The human body maintains spatial balance through the cooperation of the visual system from the eyes, proprioceptive receptors in the muscles and joints that sense body position, and the vestibular system, located in the inner ear. This vestibular system consists of semicircular canals filled with special fluid and small calcium crystals that move according to the Earth's gravity. When someone is on flat ground, all these systems send synchronous signals to the brain. However, when someone is in a very high place, the visual system begins to lose nearby object reference points because everything down there looks small and far away. The eye's inability to estimate distance accurately is often out of sync with the stability signals sent by the inner ear and leg muscles. The brain responds to this mismatch of sensory information by triggering feelings of dizziness, loss of balance, and a very strong sense of panic. Additionally, from an evolutionary biology perspective, the fear of heights is the most fundamental survival defense mechanism. Human ancestors who felt fear when on the edge of a steep cliff had a much greater chance of survival and reproduction compared to those who had no fear at all. Therefore, the human brain is genetically programmed to respond to extreme heights as a deadly threat. In J-Hope's case, this natural defense response is highly sensitive. This is seen very clearly in various episodes of their group's entertainment programs, where they often have to ride amusement park rides like roller coasters, or perform activities like jumping from heights tied with bungee cords. When J-Hope rides a roller coaster, basic physics directly starts working on his body. Roller coasters are designed using the principle of converting gravitational potential energy at the highest point into kinetic energy while sliding down at high speed. Sudden changes in speed and direction on curved tracks produce centripetal force and inertial force that exert real physical pressure on the body. The sensation of the stomach feeling left behind at the top when the train dives sharply downwards occurs because internal body organs temporarily shift from their normal positions due to sudden changes in gravitational forces. The combination of visual fear of heights and the extreme physics of the ride creates tremendous psychological pressure for J-Hope. His brain immediately instructs the adrenal glands to pump massive amounts of the stress hormone adrenaline throughout the body, increasing his heart rate to a pounding pace, dilating his pupils, and triggering the production of cold sweat. This physiological response truly puts the body in high-level survival mode, ready to fight or flee from the threat. But herein lies the most admirable thing about J-Hope's character. Even though his body and brain are constantly screaming for him to immediately get down from that high place, J-Hope almost always forces himself to complete the challenge for the sake of the show and entertainment for his fans. He uses his rational willpower to suppress his brain's fear response. The process of forcing oneself to do something absolutely terrifying while still maintaining a smile even while screaming requires an extraordinary level of mental resilience.
When we compare this fear with his abilities on the dance floor, the contrast becomes very apparent. In dance, J-Hope uses his body's low center of gravity to support every sharp movement, giving him very dominant physical stability and control. But when he's placed in an aerial ride that removes his physical footing from solid ground, that dominance instantly disappears. J-Hope's attitude of always putting professional responsibility and group togetherness above his personal comfort often makes fans feel very moved as well as entertained. Watching his struggle facing extreme rides is not just visual comedy, but rather a performance about true courage. J-Hope shows the world that being brave does not mean you have absolutely no fear. True courage, as he often proves on various occasions, is the ability to consciously step forward, sit in the seat of that ride, fasten the seatbelt, and face that fear directly, no matter how hard your heart is pounding in the open air.
Number 1. Jungkook and the funny trauma of microwave explosions. As the youngest member, Jungkook is often dubbed as the all-rounder guy who seems to have no limits to his fear. He is frequently recorded doing various extreme sports without the slightest hesitation, ranging from free-fall skydiving out of airplanes, high-intensity boxing, to swinging in the air using safety ropes during concerts in large stadiums. His body is very athletic, and he always looks comfortable being in situations that spur high levels of adrenaline production. However, the most ironic and laugh-inducing fact is that his biggest fear actually lies in a box-shaped household electronic item found in most modern kitchens, namely the microwave oven. In one of his appearances on a popular television talk show in the United States at the end of the year 2023, the presenter brought up this unique fact from his past and asked directly if he was still afraid of the food heating machine. With a wide smile and a genuine laugh, Jungkook confirmed that up to this very second, he still always feels worried and keeps his distance every time he heats up food out of fear that the object will suddenly explode. To understand why this specific fear could form, let's dig into some fun facts regarding basic physics and the technological history of microwave ovens. Technically, this heating machine works using a crucial component called a magnetotron. The magnetotron is tasked with taking the electrical current from the wall outlet and converting it into high-energy electromagnetic radiation waves with a specific frequency of about 2.4 gigahertz. When these invisible waves are shot into the oven chamber, the waves immediately interact with the water, fat, and sugar molecules contained inside the food. This physical interaction forces those molecules to spin very rapidly and rub against each other millions of times per second. This molecular friction is what ultimately produces kinetic energy in the form of heat that spreads throughout all parts of the food, heating it very quickly from the inside out. This technology originated from military radar equipment and was later adapted for civilian kitchen needs with highly strict safety standards. There is a thick layer of metal and a protective wire mesh on the glass door part, which technically functions as a Faraday cage, which effectively prevents electromagnetic waves from leaking out of the chamber. When viewed through the lens of applied science, the chances of a commercial microwave oven exploding on its own are very small, almost bordering on impossible, unless the user intentionally inserts strictly prohibited items, such as solid metals, aluminum foil, or electronic items containing sealed batteries. In the case of a tightly sealed object without air ventilation, the heat generated by the microwaves will turn the water inside the object into steam, drastically increasing internal pressure until its container shatters to pieces with a loud popping sound. Most likely, Jungkook's fear originated from a young child's incomprehension regarding incomprehensible concept of invisible radiation waves that somehow managed to produce extreme heat behind a closed box, coupled with the constant and monotonous buzzing sound of the machine. This irrational fear during childhood is a very natural thing in the realm of developmental psychology. When children are faced with physical phenomena that cannot be explained visually, their brains often fill that information void with worst-case scenarios as a form of caution.
However, what makes Jungkook's situation so unique is the fact that the childhood phobia still persists strongly in his nervous system, even though he has grown into a highly rational adult who bravely faces various real physical obstacles. Psychological fears indeed often operate separately from basic human logic. When he goes skydiving, Jungkook has a full understanding of the concepts of gravitational force, terminal velocity, air resistance, and he physically controls his body. It is a different story when he stands in front of the oven machine. He has absolutely no active control over the invisible physical processes happening behind that glass door. And this uncertainty without control is what often becomes the main trigger of the onset of anxiety. The fact that a strong man who is capable of lifting tens of kilograms of weights in the gym every day instead stands far away from his kitchen while watching the spinning plate of his food heating machine with full vigilance provides tremendous entertainment value for the audience. Fans view this extreme contrast as one of the most authentic pieces of evidence of how human a global megastar is. This shows that no matter how many international awards are successfully achieved, or how many world stadiums are successfully filled by audiences, at the end of the day, they are still ordinary humans who have domestic household life routines, complete with all their simple domestic anxieties. Jungkook's fear of this kitchen machine indirectly bridges the psychological distance between his sky-high celebrity status and the reality of the everyday lives of ordinary fans in their respective homes.